When my wife and I first moved into Willow Creek Estates, it felt like the final stop on a long, exhausting road toward peace. The lawns were always trimmed, the mailboxes freshly painted, and every neighbor waved as if the act itself were written into the bylaws. I remember saying, "This is the kind of neighborhood that smells like Sunday morning." For 3 months, I believed that line. Kids rode scooters under streetlights, and the only arguments were about which coffee shop had the better muffins. Then one afternoon, taped crookedly to my front door, came an envelope that changed everything. Notice of violation. Unauthorized vehicle storage. I laughed out loud. My old blue pickup was parked neatly in the driveway, not blocking anything, not even close to the sidewalk. Still, I walked across the street to the HOA office, a converted garage with glass walls and a brass sign that read, Community Harmony Center. Behind the desk sat Mrs. Lydia Cross, president of the association and self-appointed guardian of perfection. Her smile had the precision of dental surgery. "Good afternoon," she said, not looking up from her papers. "Afternoon," I replied, holding the notice. "I think this might have been sent by mistake." She adjusted her glasses and finally met my eyes. "Oh, you must be Mr. Hale, not a mistake. The rules specify that only standard passenger vehicles may be visible from the street. It's a 2017 Chevy, not a monster truck. Rules are rules." The conversation lasted 2 minutes but left a taste like metal in my mouth. On the way home, I noticed her window blinds part just enough for her to watch me park. I told myself it was harmless. People like that need control the way others need oxygen. A week later, another letter arrived, this time for unapproved lawn ornaments. My wife's flower boxes apparently violated the color scheme. She stood in the doorway reading it, shaking her head. "Does it ever end?" "Maybe it's just her way of saying welcome," I joked, but she didn't laugh. That evening, during our walk, we saw Lydia standing beside 2 board members taking photos of another neighbor's mailbox. One of them whispered something. Lydia nodded solemnly as though documenting a crime scene. My wife squeezed my hand. "We should have moved to the woods." At the next HOA meeting, I decided to speak up. The community hall was filled with folding chairs, styrofoam cups, and the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Lydia sat at the head table, flanked by 2 men who looked like they hadn't disagreed with her in years. I raised my hand. "About these new enforcement notices," she interrupted. "Please state your lot number." "Lot 28. Proceed." "The bylaw says vehicles are prohibited if they obstruct traffic or sidewalks." "Mine does neither." "Can we clarify the rule instead of expanding it?" Her lips tightened. "The board interprets policy as necessary to preserve neighborhood standards." "So interpretation outweighs the written rule?" "Mr. Hale, this is not a debate forum." A few quiet chuckles rippled through the audience, half sympathy, half fear. When the meeting ended, she gave me a smile that could have cut glass. "Have a pleasant evening." That night, I started a folder, one labeled HOA records. I slipped both letters inside and wrote the dates in red ink. Not because I wanted a fight, but because experience taught me that documentation is armor. Days turned into weeks. Every time I fixed one issue, another citation appeared. Improper mailbox height. Exterior lighting not compliant. Excessive noise. Garage activity after 9 p.m. That last one referred to me fixing a loose shelf. I called Lydia. She didn't pick up. Instead, an email arrived the next morning. All communication must be in writing, so I wrote. Every letter, every photo, every timestamp went into that folder, and slowly, other neighbors began whispering. Ron from Lot 31 stopped me by the mailbox. "You got one too, huh?" Mine was about lawn height. 2 inches too! Next was Nina from Lot 18. "They said my fence paint is too glossy." "Can paint be too glossy?" I nodded. "She's building a kingdom of fines." Rumors spread that Lydia's nephew ran a small landscaping company, one that mysteriously got every approved contractor job in the community. People started connecting dots, quietly, cautiously. Then came the final straw. A certified letter, final warning. Non-compliance will result in lien action. I read it 3 times. My wife's voice trembled. "A lien? Over a pickup truck?" I folded the paper carefully. It's not about the truck anymore. That weekend, I drove around the neighborhood taking photos. Cars in driveways, mailboxes out of alignment, fences painted every possible shade of beige. Each snapshot another nail in the coffin of hypocrisy. At night, I scanned the HOA bylaws and highlighted every clause they were violating themselves. No financial reports filed since the previous year, no audit records, no open minutes. When I finished, the folder had grown into a binder. I called it The Truth According to Paperwork. Still, I stayed polite. At the next board meeting, I stood again. "Madam President," I began, calm, deliberate. "Before you discuss new fines, can you share the community's annual expense report?" Her eyes narrowed. "That's an internal matter. State Statute Section 4B requires transparency." Someone in the back murmured, "He's right." Another voice added, "Where's our money going, Lydia?" The room shifted. For the first time, her control slipped. A small crack in porcelain. She cleared her throat. Meeting adjourned. Afterward, Ron caught up to me in the parking lot. "You just painted a target on your back," I smiled. "Then I better make it worth the aim." That night, as rain streaked down the windows, my wife asked, "Do you think she'll stop?" "No," I said. "People like her don't stop until someone shows them the mirror." Across the street, Lydia's porch light flicked on. Through the blinds, I saw her silhouette holding a phone, pacing. Maybe she was calling the board. Maybe the lawyer cousin she always mentioned. Either way, a storm was coming. And unlike her, I wasn't afraid of getting wet. The wind howled harder outside, pushing leaves across the driveway where my truck still sat, clean, silent, legal. I looked at it through the glass and whispered, "They picked the wrong neighbor to scare." For the first time since moving to Willow Creek, I didn't feel like a homeowner under siege. I felt like an investigator waiting for the evidence to finish writing itself. And as I slipped the newest violation notice into the binder, one quiet thought settled in my chest. The louder the tyrant, the stronger the silence that ends them. 2 days after that stormy night, I woke up to find something new on my lawn, a yellow final compliance notice, hammered into the ground like a trophy. I stood there barefoot, coffee in hand, staring at the bold black print. Failure to conform to HOA standards may result in property lien proceedings. I almost laughed. They had turned pettiness into performance art, but fear crept in too. A lien meant real money. It meant risk. Maria watched me from the porch. "Are we really ready to fight this?" I met her eyes. "We're not fighting, we're documenting." She sighed. "You always make it sound simple." "It is," I said, though my stomach felt like a clenched fist. That morning, I drove to the county clerk's office, a quiet place smelling of paper and old air. The clerk was a gray-haired woman named Edith, who looked like she'd seen every legal mess in town twice. "I'm looking for public filings from the Willow Creek Estates HOA," I said. She tapped at her keyboard, squinting at the screen. "You said Willow Creek?" "Yes, ma'am." Her eyebrows rose. "Funny, they haven't filed an annual disclosure in 3 years. My pulse kicked up. "They're supposed to file every year, right?" "By law, yes. Transparency requirement. Could I get copies?" She smiled faintly. "You planning to cause some trouble, son?" I grinned back. "No, ma'am. Just planning to end some." By noon, I had a folder full of official records, or rather, the absence of them. No tax reports, no board meeting minutes, no vendor receipts. When I compared those to the HOA's own bylaw requirements, it looked worse. They were not just breaking rules. They were rewriting them to suit themselves. That evening, I called a few neighbors. Ron from Lot 31, Nina from 18, old Mr. Dawson from 12. We met quietly in my garage, the hum of the refrigerator covering our voices. I spread the papers on a workbench. "Here," I said, tapping the pages. "They've been operating illegally for at least 3 years." Ron whistled low. "So what do we do?" "We give them a choice," I said. "Transparency or exposure." Nina leaned forward. "You think they'll cave?" "They'll double down first. People like Lydia always do, and she did." Within days, letters started flying out of her office, warnings, new policy drafts, and a circular titled Maintaining Order in Challenging Times. Every paragraph sounded like a threat wrapped in legalese. Then she crossed a line. A certified letter came to my door, claiming that my continued defiance could result in foreclosure proceedings under association authority. Maria found me sitting at the table staring at it. "She's trying to scare you," she said quietly. "She's succeeding," I admitted. But fear's only fuel. The next step was legal. I contacted a local attorney, Mr. Crane, whose office was filled with dusty law books and framed photos of fishing trips. He flipped through my binder like a detective reading a confession. "You've got gold here," he said. "Paper trails don't lie. I'll draft a letter demanding full disclosure under state statute. If they ignore it, we file for a civil injunction. Will that stop the fines?" "Maybe not right away," he said. "But it'll make them sweat." We sent the letter. 3 days later, the HOA's attorney, Lydia's cousin, responded with a 5-page statement filled with circular logic and veiled insults. Crane chuckled. "Classic bluff. They're hoping you back off." "I won't," I said. "Then get ready," he replied. "They'll try to turn the neighborhood against you." He was right again. The next week, I became the villain in their newsletter. A headline read, "Certain residents spreading misinformation threaten community harmony." They didn't use my name, but they didn't need to. Neighbors started glancing away when I waved. Some stopped altogether. But then, quietly, messages began trickling in. "Hey," one email said, "they fined me for trimming my trees too short." "Can you help me check if it's legit?" Another. "I think they're overbilling our maintenance fees." I started building an army of the disillusioned, people who just wanted fairness. By the time autumn rolled around, I had evidence stacked like bricks, screenshots of emails, time-stamped photos, bank statements from the county records. It was time. I petitioned for a special HOA meeting, backed by signatures from more than half the community. The bylaws made it impossible for Lydia to refuse. The night of the meeting felt like a slow heartbeat. The community center was packed, 70 chairs filled, 10 people standing at the back. "Phone's ready," whispered tension. Lydia sat at the front, immaculate as ever, her husband beside her with that smug calm of someone who thinks the law belongs to them. She stood and cleared her throat. "Before we begin, I want to remind everyone that personal attacks will not be tolerated." I walked to the microphone. "Then let's stick to facts," the projector hummed to life. On the screen appeared scanned images, unfiled annual reports, duplicate payments to Crossland Landscaping LLC, registered to Lydia's nephew. Gasps spread like a ripple. Her face stayed still, but her hands trembled slightly on the table. "These documents," I said, "show that our HOA has violated multiple transparency laws. Funds are being redirected, rules applied selectively, and homeowners intimidated under false authority." She stood sharply. "That is defamation." I kept my voice calm. "It's documentation." Ron raised his hand. "My family was fined $200 for hosting a birthday." "Where did that money go, Lydia?" Nina followed. "Why are we paying for landscaping contracts tied to your relatives?" Her husband rose, voice booming. "This meeting is over." But someone shouted from the back, "No, it isn't." Then another, "We have a right to vote." I turned toward the crowd. "The bylaws state that any board member may be removed by majority vote." Hands began to rise, one after another. Ron counted aloud. 1, 2, 3. By the time he hit 37, the room had transformed. Fear replaced by something fiercer. Unity. Lydia's mask cracked. "You'll regret this," she hissed quietly as she gathered her purse. I replied just loud enough for the microphone to catch. "I already regret staying silent this long." The door slammed behind her, echoing through the room like thunder finally breaking. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then an elderly woman in the second row whispered, "It's over." Applause erupted, hesitant at first, then rolling like surf. Afterward, as people filtered out, Ron clapped me on the shoulder. "You did it, man!" I shook my head. "We did it," he smiled. "Yeah, but you started it." Outside, the night air felt cleaner, lighter. For the first time in months, nobody was peeking through blinds. The hum of tension had lifted, replaced by a quiet I hadn't realized I missed. Still, as I walked home, the weight of it all sank in. Victory isn't relief, it's responsibility. Because when you take down a tyrant, you inherit their mess. Maria met me at the door. "How'd it go?" I smiled, exhausted. "Like ripping a bandage off a wound that's been festering for years." She hugged me. "So it's done?" I exhaled slowly. "Almost. Tomorrow we rebuild." And as I stood there, binder still in my hand, I realized something strange. I hadn't won by fighting. I'd won by keeping records, by refusing to shout, by letting truth speak louder than volume. Out there in the dark, Lydia's porch light was off for the first time. And in its absence, Willow Creek finally looked like the peaceful neighborhood it had always pretended to be. But deep down, I knew one thing for sure. Silence is only peace when it's honest. Tomorrow, we'd see if the quiet could last. The next morning, sunlight spilled across the street like nothing had ever happened. Kids biked past the mailboxes, dogs barked at delivery vans, and for the first time in months, there was no HOA patrol car circling the block. The air itself felt unguarded, free. I stood by the window, coffee in hand, watching the neighborhood breathe again. Maria joined me, wrapping her arms around my waist. "You look like someone who finally slept," she murmured. "I did," I said. For the first time, I didn't dream of warning letters. She smiled. "Maybe now you can plant that tree you always wanted." "Yeah," I said softly. "Maybe now it'll actually be allowed to grow." But peace, I've learned, isn't the absence of conflict. It's the space where people start choosing truth over fear. By noon, my phone buzzed nonstop. Neighbors texting thanks, volunteers offering help to reorganize the HOA. Even Edith from the county office sent a short message. "Saw your name in the papers. Well done, son. Don't let them rewrite history." I hadn't even seen the article yet, but apparently our little neighborhood rebellion had gone local. The Willow Creek reform vote was front-page news in the town paper. A blurry photo of me speaking at the meeting ran under the headline, "Homeowner leads uprising against corrupt HOA board." The comment section was chaos, half cheering, half warning. "Finally, someone stood up." "Watch your back. These things get ugly. They weren't wrong." Lydia hadn't disappeared completely. She was still somewhere behind those drawn curtains, filing appeals, whispering to the remaining loyalists. But her influence had cracked like old paint. That afternoon, we held our first community planning session in my driveway. Simple folding chairs, a jug of lemonade, no hierarchy. Just neighbors talking like neighbors. Ron leaned back, arms crossed. "So what's step one, boss?" I laughed. "First, no bosses. Second, we rebuild transparency. Every expense, every vote, public." Nina nodded. "And no more rules about mailbox colors, right?" Everyone laughed. It felt strange. Laughter had been missing from this street for too long. We voted to elect a temporary committee. 5 people, mixed ages, balanced voices. No one wanted to be in charge. We just wanted to stop living in a place that policed happiness. Days passed. The community shifted. Fences got mended, literally and figuratively. People started helping each other again, fixing sprinklers, sharing tools, organizing cleanups. It was small-town healing, the kind that doesn't make headlines but changes lives. Still, every now and then I caught myself glancing at Lydia's house. Curtains drawn. Silence. One evening, curiosity got the better of me. I walked over and slid a note under her door. "No hard feelings. If you ever want to talk, my porch light's on." I didn't expect a reply, and for a while there wasn't one. But a week later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox. No return address, just my name written in neat cursive. Inside was a single line. "Power doesn't corrupt, it reveals." I stared at it for a long time. She wasn't apologizing, but she wasn't threatening either. Just a reminder that all of us, given control, show who we truly are. The irony wasn't lost on me. Because even after winning, I felt something changing inside me. An awareness of how easy it would be to become the very thing I fought. Control starts with good intentions. So does tyranny. Weeks turned into months. The HOA transformed into something more human. Less homeowners association, more homeowners alliance. We built a website for open budgets, shared updates, even held movie nights on the green. One evening, while setting up a projector, I noticed a boy staring at me from the edge of the crowd. Maybe 12 years old. "You're the guy who beat the HOA, right?" he asked. I laughed. "I guess that's one way to put it." He grinned. "My dad says you changed everything." I looked at the family's gathering, the glow of the screen flickering across smiling faces. "Nah," I said. "We all did." As the movie started, I found myself drifting back through the last few months. The letters, the threats, the meetings, the shouting, the silence after the storm. It felt distant now, like a bad dream you only remember in fragments. But late that night, when everyone was gone and the stars had taken their places, I stood alone on my porch and whispered to the dark, "Was it worth it?" A breeze moved through the trees, gentle and forgiving. Maybe that was the answer. The next morning, I visited Edith at the county office again. "Back so soon?" she teased. "Just wanted to file something," I said, handing her an envelope. She glanced inside. "New HOA charter?" "Not exactly," I said. "A proposal to dissolve it entirely. Let the community manage itself," she chuckled. "That's brave. Or foolish," I admitted. "Depends who you ask." She stamped the document. "Good luck. You'll need it." Back home, I found Maria sitting in the garden, sketching flowers in her notebook. "Guess what?" I said. "We're officially HOA free." She looked up, eyes wide. "Seriously?" I nodded. "It's done. No more fines. No more threats. Just us." She smiled, setting her pencil down. "Then plant your tree, love." "You've earned it." We dug the hole together. The soil was rich and dark, the kind that remembers rain. When the sapling stood upright, I tied a small tag to it, the same words from Lydia's letter. "Power doesn't corrupt, it reveals." But I added beneath it, "And truth redeems." As we watered the roots, I felt something settle inside me, a calm I hadn't known in years. Not victory, not pride, just clarity, because in the end, the HOA wasn't the enemy. The real fight was against silence, fear, and the temptation to give up when systems seemed too strong to challenge. Weeks later, I received one last letter. Not from Lydia, from the county. It confirmed that the HOA dissolution had passed. Willow Creek was no longer under formal association control. It was ours, truly ours. That night, I walked the neighborhood one last time before turning in. The porch lights glowed softly. The air smelled of cut grass and barbecue. Kids laughed somewhere down the block. And for the first time, I didn't feel like a rebel or a watchdog. Just a neighbor. Maria met me at the door. "Everything okay?" I nodded. "Yeah, everything's finally okay." She smiled. "So what now?" I looked out at the quiet, the peace that had cost us so much to earn. "Now," I said, "we keep it honest." The wind rustled through the new tree we'd planted, its leaves whispering in the darkness, like applause from the earth itself. And as I turned off the porch light, I thought about Lydia's final words again. Maybe she was right. Power reveals, but so does resistance. And sometimes the smallest rebellion, a planted tree, a truth spoken, can rewrite the story of an entire neighborhood. The camera would fade out there, slowly zooming on the tree swaying under the moonlight, its roots gripping the soil like a promise. That peace, once earned through truth, can grow deeper than fear ever could.